Hello there. This is your girl Valerie Mason Chase again. And as you can see, I'm flying solo today. There's no Cookie Man. He'll be with me next week, but this week you got just me. I want to thank you all who are watching, whether you're watching live or if you're watching a replay. I thank you for watching. Thank you for your support. I encourage you to subscribe on the YouTube channel, to like the Facebook page. Well, today we're going to be talking about a very serious topic of children and teens and their parents or caregivers are dealing with. And we want to tackle this subject matter on today. And we're going to be talking about anxiety, depression, and bullying in children and teens. Hey, sis. That's my sister, Jackie. Thanks for watching, sis. And I have two very, very special guests on today who are going to add to this conversation. So I'm going to bring them on one at a time. And first, I'm bringing on Sister Carmelita Hale. Hey, Carmelita.
Hello. Hi, everybody.
Thank you so much for being on here. And I just want to let you know, Carmelita and I know each other from maybe 13, 14 years ago. She and my daughter, Sidel, worked together at the Child Protective Services in Reading, Pennsylvania. But Carmelita has since relocated to Georgia. And I'm going to read a little bit of her bio. Let me put the comments on. I forgot about that because Sidel is saying, hey, to Carmelita.
Hi, Sidel.
So let me just tell you a little bit about Carmelita. So Carmelita Hale is the founder and creator of Carmelita's Couch. Carmelita's Couch provides life coaching services as an alternative to traditional therapy. Carmelita earned her Master's of Science in Clinical Mental Health Counseling from Capella University in 2019. Carmelita has years of experience in providing therapeutic services to children and families. The mission for Carmelita's Couch is to provide a safe, non-judgmental space where teens can feel free to be themselves in order to find the solace, support, and guidance they need to push past their fears and reach their full potential. When she is not providing life coaching services, Carmelita also provides school-based mental health therapy to middle and high school students. So again, thank you, Carmelita, for being here, and thank you for your yes and sharing your time.
Thank you for having me.
So I'm hearing a little feedback on my end. I don't know if you, the viewers, hear that feedback. Just comment, put something in the comments and let me know if you can hear it. I'm hoping that it's only something that we can hear in the room, but that you guys cannot hear. So just Sidel or Jackie, comment and let me know if you're hearing any feedback. Sidel said she does hear some feedback. Okay. And Paula, hey Paula, thank you for joining. Paula hears it also. So I think it might be, I'm going to try something right now. All right, what about now? Can you hear the feedback? All right, I don't hear it. So it seems like the feedback is coming from Carmelita's device. So what I'm going to do is, whenever Carmelita is not speaking, Carmelita, I'm just going to mute your microphone. So that will eliminate the feedback, because it only seems to occur when I'm speaking, because I didn't hear the feedback when you were speaking. Okay, thumbs up. Okay. So I also want to bring on another person who, believe it or not, I found her on LinkedIn, and it was very short notice. And even on the short notice, she agreed to come on and to add to this conversation and to be on the broadcast today. So I'm going to bring her on. That's Terry Todd. Hi, Terry.
Hi, how are you?
I am well, and thank you again so much for saying yes, especially for the short notice. And I apologize for that, because I don't typically invite people on with such short notice, but I believe everything happens I don't believe in coincidence. I believe everything that happens is by divine design. So I just want to thank you again for your yes. So before we get started with the questions, I want to read Terry's bio. Terry Todd is the founder of the FAB Coalition, and the FAB stands for Fashion Against Bullying. It's a nonprofit organization, and she's also the owner of T. Todd Educational Consulting Company. Terry is also the creator of the FAB Coalition After School Creative Counseling Program. Terry has been working in the field of education for over 25 years, from early childhood education to high school, along with consulting early college-age students on life experiences and career development. Terry has the unique ability to connect with students by combining her fashionable style and experience with her knowledge of social emotional learning through counseling. Terry believes in the importance of the family dynamic. She's been married to her husband, Arvin, for over 34 years and is the mother of 4 adult children. She also has 2 grandchildren and another on the way. Congratulations, Terry.
Thank you.
Terry is completing her master's degree in school counseling at King University in 2022, this year. And she's currently running the FAB Coalition After School Creative Counseling Program in Jersey City, New Jersey. This is Terry's quote. "The creative abilities in our students should not go unnoticed. The importance of using their creative interests as a tool to help them fill their individual achievement gaps, she believes, falls on us as counselors, educators, and community leaders. By creating a program that gives students a platform to express themselves through fashion and other forms of artistic interests," she says, "my hope is that it will help them grow and develop into amazing human beings." Wow, that is a very, very powerful quote. And thank you again, Terry. So let's get started. I want to invite those of you who are watching. If you have questions, don't hesitate. If you have comments, I invite you to share this broadcast with your friends and family, because you never know who may be dealing with this type of issue. So I recently read something on the healthychildren.org website, and it said, quote, "According to the National Institutes of Health, nearly 1 in 3 of all adolescents ages 13 to 18 will experience an anxiety disorder. These numbers have been rising steadily between 2007 and the year 2020. Anxiety in children and teens has gone up by 20%. To me, that's an alarming number. So what do you believe are some of the causes for this increase? And Carmelita, I'm going to start with you. Oh, I can't hear you now. I can't hear you. Are you muted on your end? Because I unmuted you on my end. Okay, Carmelita just went out, but she'll be back. Hey, Liz, I want to give a shout out to Liz. That's my daughter-in-law. Thank you for watching. So Carmelita will be back. So Terry, let's talk about this, because that number, to me, that's an alarming number, an increase of 20%. What's been your experience with that?
Well, my experience with it, a lot of it, I think it's always been there. Anxiety has always been there. I think the rise in the anxiety has a lot to do with COVID. It has a lot to do with the students being shed in for almost 2 years. And then coming back, if you look at it, a student who left and went into quarantine or lockdown in the 7th grade is now coming back as a freshman in high school.
Wow.
Okay, in person.
Yeah.
So it's really a difficult transition. It's been my experience in dealing with high school students just this past year, with them coming back. It's been a difficult transition for a lot of them, especially in the younger grades, because they've never experienced high school before, or either have had limited experience in high school before we went out on quarantine, on lockdown rather. And also, I would say prior to COVID and the whole lockdown situations, just children, young people, young adults, even some adults, anxiety, a lot of anxiety, not all of it, but it comes from the level of outside expectations or even inward expectations.
Yes, yes.
When children feel that they're disappointing somebody, or they're not meeting up to a level or a standard that we as society or parents or family put on them, that could cause a lot of the anxiety and a lot of other issues as well.
Wow. You know what? That point you made about the transition being in one grade, which might be middle school, prior to the lockdown, and then when you come back to school in person, now you're in high school. I never even thought of that. Because that's going to be very, very impactful. It's got to make a huge difference in the emotional impact of these young people. And I see Dr. Danita is on. Dr. Danita.
Say hey, Danita.
I didn't know until a few minutes ago that you and Terry were good friends.
Yes.
Yes. And you talked about expectations. So Carmelita, I don't know if you could hear. Hey, Bakim, my nephew's watching. I don't know if you could hear, but one of the things that Terry mentioned in terms of something that may have contributed to the rise in anxiety and depression in children and teens is she mentioned the COVID pandemic and the lockdown and coming back, transitioning from virtual, coming back to live and in person, and also mentioning about expectations that sometimes parents, teachers, and others may have on students. So what would you say from your perspective are some of the reasons or the causes that may have contributed to the increase in anxiety and depression in children and teens?
Sorry, I wasn't able to hear anything you guys said, but I agree 100%. During the pandemic, teens and children really suffered, being at home, being isolated, some living in conditions that maybe aren't the greatest. I mean, if you think about it, for some kids, school is solace for them. Being able to get with friends and socialize and get, meals and feel safe.
Yes.
And just be able to connect with others. So definitely I saw a rise in anxiety in the teenagers that I worked with during the pandemic when it initially started. Teenagers that I had been working with that were not experiencing anxiety started experiencing anxiety. And then when school returned to in session, it even rose to the level of, panic attacks and things like that because of, the COVID concerns and then, the political climate we were in. So it was just a lot going on.
Wow. And you know something, as someone who has only adult children, and even though I am a counselor, I don't typically counsel children. My starting age is 21. I don't typically counsel anyone younger than the age of 21. So a lot of these things that you are mentioning, I can't say they are surprising. They're not shocking, but it's kind of surprising. And I have to honestly say they are things that I had not considered and have not even thought about. When you say school can be solace for a child, so a place where they may take refuge from some things happening at home, or where they may actually get a meal for the first time. Wow. I had not even thought about that. Yes.
Yes.
Wow, that's very impactful.
I work into I have an after school program in a heavily urban school, both in the same district, but they're like night and day. And the other school is a gifted and talented school where I'm doing my internship. But the problem seems to be the same. And the reason why I threw in expectations is because the at the gifted and talented school, those kids they're under pressure constantly. They were under pressure when we were virtual, and they're under pressure now being back in person, to stay at and reach a particular academic level. Now level of expectation of them is put on them, from family, from the school, that's the reason why they're in that particular school. You take that and couple that with the whole COVID situation, you're dealing with a pretty devastating and overwhelming situation at times.
Yeah. It's almost as if there's this sense of inevitability where how could it not happen when you have all these things that are converging together in the life of these children and these teenagers. So that's pretty significant. My daughter Sidel mentioned cell phones. Even though social media and cell phones are great tools to bring people together, they can also create a great divide amongst people. So talk about that social media impact and how that may contribute to anxiety, depression, and bullying.
I know Terry probably has a lot more experience with the bullying, but I mean, the cell phones, I tell you, I wish we could just take them away when it comes to teenagers. The amount of bullying that goes on social media is unbelievable. I personally have a 9-year-old, 13-year-old, and a 17-year-old, and I'm so grateful and thankful that they are not on social media. And I tell my 17-year-old all the time, like, stay off as long as you can. You are helping yourself so much by not being on there, because the access what kids are exposed to on social media, and I see it working in the schools. I mean, something jumps off at school, it's on TikTok, it's on Instagram, it's on Snapchat. The story has went 50 million ways. Things have been shared 1,000 times. This is in school. The school day has not even ended, and everybody knows about it, and it's out of control. And for the targeted child, it's a lot to deal with.
Yeah.
So I think it's really a situation where our society has become so dependent on technology and social media and these types of things, where the very thing that's actually needed is hurting us, but truth, the reality, it's needed when you talk about that single parent, or that child that has to be alone by themselves after they come home from school. That's their way or their avenue to stay in contact with their caregiver, and it's although it's needed, I think what has happened is that it was thrusted upon us without education. So we haven't educated our kids on the dangers until it was like too late. Now they're technical savvy, and when they first came out with the cell phones, we really didn't, it was up to the parents to really teach the education on with the cell phones, because who's buying it? We are. Parents are buying the cell phones. So for us to educate our kids and block certain things, even though they'll find a way. Trust me, they will find a way through technology if they really want to. But it's been both a danger and a help. And I see you, Dr. Danita. Yes, definitely the cell phones have created anxiety, and I don't even know if there's any way to stop it, to take it away, except through educating teens on how to use it.
Right.
And what should that education look like, Terry, from your perspective?
Well, a lot of times from my perspective, working in the high schools, it's not so much of telling them what to do or what to listen to. It's more giving them greater options. So, like for a student, in one of the school where I do my after school program, they're notorious for taping physical altercations and,
Mm,
things that are negative and whatnot. So this is their environment. This is what they're used to. So
mhm,
this is, I have one student who told me actually that they go home and videotape and practice how to fight. So
what?
when they come to school,
Wow.
they'll know how to fight if they ever get into an altercation. So they
Mm,
videotape it, practice it, and study it, and they're doing this through their cell phones. So this is like the type of thing that we're dealing with. But what I try to do is redirect that behavior with the program that I'm in, and give them little contests and stuff to do where they can tape each other doing something positive and talk
mm,
about it,
mhm,
post
mhm.
the sewing and posting positive things. We do a lot of sewing in my after school program, so we post them sewing, we post them doing something good or something kind,
Good.
that type of thing. And then at the end of the week, they're rewarded. I usually get them pizza and some stuff like that, because
Good.
I think they need to see something besides students being rewarded for negative behavior.
That's good. That's really good. One thing, something my daughter Sadell just mentioned about influencers and people being quote unquote TikTok famous, and that giving the youth an unrealistic expectation of the world and of themselves. And if they can't live up to it, creating anxiety and depression. She said they don't realize that most of what they see on social media is fake and engineered for entertainment, and then they try so hard to emulate what they see. So, what are your thoughts on that? Because, I mean, listen, I'm about to be 66 years old in October of this year, so we didn't have that influence growing up. I mean, we barely had a TV in my house, so it's hard to really fathom this whole influencer thing. At first, I didn't know what an influencer was because I actually had a client who said that was her aspiration, was to be a YouTube influencer. And at the time, I hate to say it, I didn't even know what that meant. She had to explain it to me what exactly is an influencer. So what are your thoughts on that? What these influencers and the impact that they have on these young folk?
I think, like Terry said, really the only recourse we have is to educate them on
Yeah.
how to do that in a healthy way. And I also believe in educating parents. At Carmelita's Couch, it's a huge part of the process for me is educating the parent on how to support
Mm,
the child. I
yeah.
have some kids that I work with that have had exposure to porn, and
Mm,
and the parents, were clueless, and I have to bring them in and talk to them about it. The
mm,
reality of the situation, the dangers, the impact, the effects that has, and help them, develop a plan
yeah.
to kind of rein in, the control. You don't want to
Yes.
just take devices when you've allowed it all this time. So of course you don't want to just, take everything away forever. That doesn't work. They find another way to
Mm,
get to it. But you want to work together with your
yeah.
child to come up with a plan that's best for them and you.
Yeah. And I think that when you bring parents into it, I mean, I think it's great when you can bring the
Yes.
parents into it and deal with it as a family. But there's so many kids that are out there swimming by themselves. They're doing it,
Mm,
they're raising themselves, they're
Hmm.
doing this on their own. They're learning what they've learned by bad influencers, by the,
yeah. Yeah.
when the TV and social media is actually your babysitter, then, what do we expect? And there goes that word again, your level of expectations. Those expectations aren't just apparent to a child, but these students and these young people have expectations of themselves, what they see on social media. They think that that's what they're supposed to be. That's what they're supposed to look like. That's their level of expectation, is that a beautiful person is somebody that's half naked, and gets all the attention. So that's what they want to be. And I think that as counselors and mental health professionals, we have to look behind all of that layers of stuff that I think it was your daughter just mentioned. Why do you want to look like that person on social media? Why do you want to be an influencer? What does that mean to you? So asking all of those questions and really digging deep. But if you don't have anybody in your life that'll do that with you, that's what we're getting.
Yeah, that's really good, because I like what you said about digging deep and trying to find out why, because a child with low self-esteem is such an easy target for these influencers. And if that is not explored and not discovered and taken through a process to try to elevate that self-esteem, it can lead to something that's very self-destructive.
Yes.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. Mm-hmm. So what might be some of the things, the symptoms, or the changes in the teen or a child that the parents or other caregivers and teachers should look for that would raise their suspicion that this particular child is dealing with anxiety and or depression?
Isolating themselves, that's a huge one. Wanting to be alone by themselves, not talking or communicating with others. A loss of interest in things that maybe they used to like to do, used to enjoy doing, don't want to do that anymore. Easily agitated, aggravated, frustrated, where it almost seems like, what is the big deal? Why are you even upset about that? They're just irritable. All of a sudden, you might have a child or teen who is argumentative with the parent and family members, just always in a bad mood. Struggling academically, anxiety, certainly panic attacks, definitely a sign of that. Trouble sleeping, all of a sudden insomnia. And I definitely, on that note, I see a lot of kids that struggle with sleeping, but their parents aren't aware that that's happening. So they're in their room at bedtime, say 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, they don't come back out. The parent assumes, they're sleeping, but they're not. And I've even had some that I've worked with that's the time they're kind of having those thoughts come up of, suicidal ideation. They're alone in their room, nobody's communicating with them, maybe friends have gone on to bed, nothing's really happening on social media. And so I encourage parents to, check on them throughout the evening. You get up and go to the bathroom, look in on your child. If you're up and about, you might be cleaning or what have you, or doing your own thing. Check in on them, ask them how they're doing, because that helps kind of bring them back to a good place and connecting.
I would also like to add to that. Check and see if your child is sleeping too much, if they're doing a lot of sleeping, or if they're sick with no symptoms. Just all of a sudden they don't feel well. Something is going on, and they don't have a fever. They're not, there's no symptoms. There's something else. And one of the workshops that I taught was when you're dealing, and this is for younger children mostly, that when you're dealing with a certain age group, you can do something, and it's part of what I do with fashion, is you can have a signal. It can be something that child wears. It could be a color. It could be a bracelet, a hat, or something that child can put on to signify to that adult that's paying attention that this child is wearing this piece of clothing or article of clothing. But the point is that when the adult recognize it, they can ask, is everything okay? They can initiate the conversation. So it's, a lot of times the kids are not going to come out and tell you what's wrong. But if you, as the adult and the person that's knowing some advice or whatever to give the child, then you can recognize, a piece of clothing, something that they've never worn before, or, maybe even a piece of artwork. If they draw a picture and put it up on the refrigerator and, you notice it, then you can have a conversation and you can check it out.
And Dr. Danita just mentioned that it's hard sometimes to determine the difference between regular teen behaviors and mental health challenges. She says it takes a lot of communication and paying attention. And I absolutely agree with that. I think sometimes parents just don't pay attention and they chalk it up. Oh, they're just being a 15-year-old or 16-year-old or 17-year-old. And it can be quite challenging. So I'm wondering, what has been your experience, or what is your perspective on the schools are providing some sort of education for the parents? Is that even happening?
I think they're trying. They're trying. I mean, it's difficult to get parents out to come out, and it's just hard, period, to try to give parenting advice to somebody. Most people don't want you to tell them how to raise their child, and they get very defensive with it. But you have to find ways, and I think that's why people such as us go into this particular field, because you have to find ways and techniques where you can where the parents can feel, or the caregivers can feel comfortable, as well as the kids. But as far as the schools, you usually I haven't seen a school yet that has a roaring parent turnout. Most of the ones I've dealt with, if you can get a good 20 parents to come out on a meeting, you're doing awesome. You're doing great.
Wow.
Yeah, it's difficult to get parents.
I do. I understand that, because even though my children are now in their late 30s, when they were school age, and I hate to say it, but sometimes depending on where we lived was a factor in how well the turnout was for parents. There were some places we lived where on open school night or PTA or something, you could hear a pin drop because the turnout was so poor. And other places we lived, that the turnout was so great, they had people out there directing traffic. So I think that makes a big difference. And Paula just said, I just want to put something what Paula just said, that some parents feel it's an attack on their ability to parent, but the kids are suffering. And I'm wondering if any of you have run into that.
I think for myself, I do deal with parents a lot. And I really try to approach the parents from a supportive point of view. I'm never here to judge, you're not a bad parent. That's not what this is. Usually I find parents to be pretty receptive because they see the progress that their child is making. They see how well they're doing, and they want that to continue. And usually when I'm contacting them, it's like, here's the progress that's been made, and here's now how we can loop you in to keep that going, or here's the support that your child needs from you to be able to continue to be successful. And I find that when I come from that approach, they are a lot more willing to kind of get on board.
And I agree with you 100%. When you can communicate with a parent that you're trying to help their child, and you make it about the child, and not so much as judging them or an attack on them. We want to try to get your child some help. How can we work together? I think that, once they feel that they're not being attacked or judged or anything like that, they become a little bit, a little more pliable. With the parents that I've dealt with, my issue really is dealing with an overabundance of parents who are just not there. They're just not Jersey City is a very densely populated area. And yes, I agree with Dr. Danita. A lot of the families are very disadvantaged. And, a lot of the students that I deal with, and I have one situation that comes to my mind right away, and she's always in my thoughts and my prayers, is because both of her parents died. So she's living with aunts and uncles, and all of her aunts or uncles are drug addicts or some type of abusers. And she told me that that's what they expect of her, to turn out like them. So the support system is just not there, as far as when the school only has them for about 7 hours. So when they go home, if the support system isn't there and it isn't working together with what you're doing as a counselor or in school, the positiveness, then that kid has the rest of the day to get all of those negative vibes and everything else that society or their environment gives them.
Yes.
And to piggyback off, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, baby. Go ahead.
To piggyback off of what Terry was saying, I agree with that 100%. There are some kids that there just is no support. And my approach in dealing with them is empowering them to be their biggest support.
Right.
I have to give them the skills that they need to help themselves. And dealing with anxiety, I am a huge believer of psychoeducation, and that is educating them on what it is they're experiencing so that they can understand what that looks like emotionally, physically in their body, what that feels like, so they can identify that early and they can help themselves early on, if they're feeling anxious or depressed or what have you. When I have a situation like that where there's a parent that's just not able to do it, then my goal is to empower that child as much as I can. Like, okay, we got, let's do this.
Yeah. Wow, I love that, Carmelita. I absolutely love that. And that connects with the comment that Dr. Danita just made, because she said many parents are at a disadvantage because they have their own mental health challenges. And many don't even know how to have these conversations with their teens. It doesn't come naturally. And Paula said that, agreed with Dr. Danita. She said, yes, by the time I was able to heal from my own issues, I had already caused so much damage to my own children. Thank you for that, Paul, for sharing that. And thank you for your transparency. And listen, I have to say, as parents, we're not perfect. We make mistakes along the way. I had my own emotional and mental health issues when I became a mom, but I still had to raise these children. And I know that there were things that mistakes I made along the way, and a whole lot that I could have done differently and could have done better had I got the help that I needed much earlier than I did. So yes, that is a problem when you have a parent that has their own issues that they're dealing with. And they're raising the children. So I'm wondering, and when you have a situation like that, have you come across a situation where you have encouraged a parent to seek help for themselves as well?
Absolutely. Being an advocate for mental health, of course, that's always my goal, is, to get as many people as I can into therapy. But, when you come with that empathetic and understanding approach, they kind of let that guard completely down. A lot of times I have parents crying, on the phone, and, I'm like, Mom, you sound like you're really struggling too. Like, you sound like you could use some help. Would you like me to provide some resources? There are programs out here that can also help you. And, not always, but a lot of times, they will go ahead and get that help if they know how to get it. Sometimes they don't know. They don't know where to go. They don't have insurance. So I try to stay, with my toolbox of resources, or get back to them. I don't have an answer for you now. Let me do some research. Let me see what I can find out. Let me see what I can do, and, get back to you with whatever I can find. You have college students who are in a psychology program who provide free therapy, for their internships. You have
I know all about that, right, Dr.
Right.
That pro bono comes in handy. Get them out, and they get out. Win-win for everybody.
Definitely, it's always a segue to try to get the parent, the help that they need as well, so that the whole family can be functioning, on a healthy level.
I think one thing to keep in mind too is that the mental health issue is just recently in a lot of cultures being accepted.
Yeah. Say
It's
that
it's
again, Chris. Say that again.
it's just recently in a lot of cultures being accepted. I mean, I don't know about you. I'm in my mid
Absolutely.
50s, and I know when I was younger that most African American families wasn't nobody going to let you know that they needed help issues, and they
Yeah.
needed to talk. That was taboo.
Mhm.
And you didn't talk about those kind of issues, or even though everybody had that crazy family member that needed
That crazy
help.
uncle.
That crazy uncle. I had one. So I'm like, this is just and I think we need to continue in promoting the mental health and wellness, as make it normal, normalize mental health and mental wellness. It's been taboo in a lot of cultures. And I know that there's a lot of students that I deal with that they're afraid. That's part of the anxiety. They're afraid to actually talk to a counselor or get the help because of the family culture and the surroundings. They're unable to talk about certain issues of sexual identity because it's not accepted in the culture. It's a lot. It's a lot. And you can see where the anxiety and depression and a lot of stuff come from.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good. And I think Paula just said something. It's, as kids, we weren't taught to deal with big feelings. Yes, if anything, we, in my generation, we were taught to suppress any feelings.
Yeah.
Display of emotion, you almost got an AW for displaying emotions. And if you don't know, AW is an ass whooping. Okay.
Yeah.
You almost got one for displaying emotions. So yeah, Paula, you are absolutely right. And
And the reason why
I want to change in my grandchildren. I want them to be able to display emotions. If they cry, cry. Have that emotion. If you're upset, be upset. I mean, I think it was maybe last week when the grandchildren were over, and my granddaughter, the oldest one, just kind of stomped off and went to the back. And my husband said, "Yeah." And I said, "Babe, she's upset about something. Give her a minute." She stomped out. She ain't cuss. She ain't talk back. All she did was just walk out of the room, let her go. And, when she gets her little stuff together, we'll talk to her about that. But I just am, and I don't know if I'm too much on one side or the other, but I'm trying to be so careful of not stifling their emotions and allowing them some expression in the midst of having conversations about what that emotion is and why you're having it. So, yeah.
Right. I'm an advocate for feel your feelings. And, something that I've noticed is from, the older generation, we didn't even have the words for the feelings. One of the things I say to the clients that I work with is, we learned like in kindergarten, like happy, mad, sad, like four things, and there's so many other emotions, worried, scared, feeling worthless, frustrated, agitated, feeling left out, confused, abandoned, not good enough, a host of things. And I like to give teens those words so that when they're feeling something, I tell them, stop for a moment and feel your feeling and acknowledge what is it? Did you just feel left out? Did you just get your feelings hurt? Are you sad because this happened? Whatever it is, feel that feeling for a second. Allow it to pass through you and then move forward. When you acknowledge your feelings, it gives you an opportunity to kind of take a moment and not go, because you have that other, when you're not just the kids that are isolating into themselves, you have the kids that have the acting out behaviors. They're getting in trouble, they're fighting, they're, slamming doors, they're breaking things, they're cursing people out, they're getting kicked out of school, they're using drugs, whatever it is. So when you learn how to regulate your emotions, you can learn how to handle those difficult feelings and emotions.
Yeah.
And Carmelita, talking about not knowing how to name emotions, there are adults who don't know how to do that. Even
Absolutely.
when clients, I give them this thing called the feeling wheel. I don't know if you can see that.
Yes,
but
yes.
I give them the feeling wheel, and it has some base words and a whole lot of other feeling words, because I want them to use your feeling. Tell me what it is you're feeling. So it's not just the children.
Right.
Some of the grown folk don't know how to name them either. Go ahead, Terry.
Can I just say that most of the issues that we as counselors deal with the kids, it came from a broken adult. It came from the adults have problems. This is where they get it from. And it's difficult to try. And I think Dr. Danita put it in there. It's easier for me to talk to my grandkids than it is for me to talk to like adults, because they've had years and years of influence and culture and stuff that has been deeply rooted in them. And I'm sure you probably have clients and people that you speak to in their 50s and 60s that's still dealing with issues from when they were 5.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then we expect the kids to be okay.
Right.
Okay, that's a problem. Right. How you want to expect the kids to be okay? You're not okay.
I had a kid at Carmelita's couch who, the mom, wanted me to work with her, and I had one session with her, and then I called the mom back and I said, "Mom, you the problem." Yes. You need to deal with your anger, your frustration over things in your life that haven't worked out the way you wanted them to. So, and that was one of the times where I segued into, hey, I have a colleague that, provides therapy, would you be interested in working with her? So while I'm working with your daughter, you're also getting the help that you need. And she was yes, she's crying.
It's difficult trying to, excuse me, I didn't mean to cut you off, but it's difficult trying to fix the child and not offer help to the entire family or whatever the support base is, because you're only fixing part of the problem. You're not really, this child has to go back to the issue. So if you don't offer help or some type of something to resource or something to the support system, then that child has no support system. Right. So I mean, it's very important that we offer help, or at least to the least resources where they can get help.
Yes. Dr. Anita just added something. She said most parents bring their kids to be quote unquote fixed. They really don't know it's their problem. They have lived with their issues and it's become their norm. That's really true. Yeah.
And it's a shame when their norm is so broken until the behavior goes unnoticed.
Wow.
That is it's crazy. When the part that's broken becomes the norm, then you don't even notice the broken parts anymore. It's just normal.
That's good. Yeah.
And that's difficult to try to, when you have a kid. I mean, I said we had a campaign at one of the schools that I was working with about domestic violence. And I said to one of my coworkers, I said, well, domestic violence is nothing but bullying on steroids. That child saw that a long time ago. Okay. And that just grew up to be that monster, so it's a lot of issues that we don't take care of, or we haven't taken care of early enough, so they grow up to be, it's just like in the Bible, that little snake in Genesis is a dragon by the time you get to Revelation.
I know that's right. A whole lot done happened in between. He grew up.
Yeah.
Feeding him.
Yep.
So I want to ask this, because I know a lot of times children who are being bullied, they kind of suffer in silence and they don't necessarily share with their parents what's going on. So what are some of the things that a parent could notice or be on the lookout for to suspect maybe their child might be the target of a bully?
I would say almost immediately if that child no longer wants to socialize or go to school. If that child is having, if you see grades slipping, you have normally a child that's an A and B student who's now struggling. And I'm not saying that that's the case, but what I am saying that there could be signals for you to at least ask a question. Is everything okay? And what's going on? I mean, it's very difficult if there's no communication in the support system to find out anything. And this is why part of the techniques that I teach or I try to educate a lot of the young people that I do is how can you express yourself without talking? How can you communicate without saying a word? And that was actually how I came up with Fashion Against Bullying, is the fact that you can't, society, and we've been told, and I'm sure you guys have heard this, don't judge a book by its cover, but that's actually what we do every day. That's how Trayvon Martin was killed, because he had on a hoodie, so we try to educate teens on what you wear and what your actions and your behavior has a lot to do with how the world has that conversation with you. If you come out and you have on the skirt where I can almost see your undergarments and a see-through top, what are you saying? What is it that you're trying to say? What is it that you want people to know about you? So we go on this campaign of how can you just say what you need to say without speaking, without opening your mouth. Let's figure out some techniques. How can we do that?
Yeah, that's good. I like that.
And I think for me, the best advice I have for parents and my experiences is make sure your child is connected to another adult, a trusted adult besides yourself. I find a lot of parents, I work in a different demographic than Terry, but a lot of the parents that I work with, they think because they have a good relationship with their child, they are communicating with them, things are going well, that they know everything, or their child is telling them everything. And I promise you, they're not. And so I cannot emphasize enough. I would love it to be a therapist or a skilled life coach such as myself, but another trusted adult that child is connected to, that they can talk to, because for sure there are things going on with that child that they are not going to tell you under any circumstances, but they get in a session with me and they tell it all. And then I can help them navigate through that, whether it's being bullied at school. And, lucky enough, myself and Terry, we work in a school. So, if a child reveals to me they're being bullied, I can get right on that. Right. I have a direct link. But also other issues. I had a child I worked with that it stuck with me. She was having suicidal thoughts. She had a good relationship with her parents, with her mom and her dad, who lived in separate households. They had no idea, and she didn't communicate it to them because she said she thought it would change how they thought about her. And she didn't want them to think of her differently, that she had that thought. So that's the sole reason, she didn't say anything to them. She told me in a first session, and that was serious. It needed to be addressed. She needed help. So I'm always encouraging parents to please, get your child talking to someone. If you have insurance and you can get them a therapist, get it. Be proactive. They don't even have to be doing horribly to have somebody to talk to.
Yeah.
Connect them.
And even if you don't have insurance, there are counseling practices such as Mending Hearts, who will offer pro bono services. That means no charge at all.
Yes.
So don't hesitate to contact a counseling practice just because you don't have the money or you don't have insurance, because there are options where you or your child can get the counseling they need for no cost at all or very, very low cost. There are practices
and a lot
out
of parents
there.
don't. And the program that I worked with the school-based mental health, is actually targeted for kids who don't have insurance. A lot of parents don't even know it exists. So all
Yeah,
they have to do is contact their school counselor and say,
Right.
hey, I think my child could
Right.
benefit from getting therapy. And the counselor will connect them with me. And it's no charge to the parent and for uninsured kids. So absolutely, you know, but also supporting them and pushing them.
I was getting ready to say the same thing. If a parent is willing to let a counselor or someone at the school know, if nothing else, they can put them in contact. I know that there are in a particular area, there's schools that's already connected with mental health, and they have mobile crisis units. They have all kinds of services that are free, that if you mention it to a counselor or to somebody, a social worker or whatever, they will find free resources for you.
And the parents should reach out, because sometimes those kids who are suffering from anxiety and depression fall under the radar. They're quiet, they're not making any trouble, they're not doing anything, and they kind of fall under the radar. But if you think your child is struggling, you know, definitely reach out to, you know, your school counselor.
Yes. And Dr. Danita just put up the name of her practice, Mending Hearts Family Counseling in Florence, New Jersey. So if you are in New Jersey, in that area, I don't know what county that is, because I'm from Pennsylvania. Even though I practice at Mending Hearts, I don't know what county that is. So Dr. Danita, you could put in the county, but Mending Hearts Family Counseling in Florence, New Jersey, and Mending Hearts does offer pro bono services for those who have no insurance or have inadequate insurance. And there she put in the website, www.mendingheartsfsinfranc.org, mendingheartsfc.org. And I want to talk about Burlington County. Thank you, Dr. Danita. Because see, I'm from Brooklyn. We don't know counties in Brooklyn. We know Kings County. That's only because Kings County Hospital. Other than we don't know counties. I want to talk about the work that each of you provide. Okay, because we're kind of running out of time. I still had some more questions, but this hour goes by so quickly when we are having a conversation like this, and some of you may have some additional questions. So I want to talk about, let me see if this will work. Oh, that didn't work. Let me see if I can't click on it. I was trying to put no, that didn't show up right. Hold on. Paula was asking, can we have a part 2? I would love to do that. If both of these young ladies are available, Sister Paula, I will try my best to make it work.
Yeah, definitely.
I will try my best to make it work. So if you guys, any of you who are watching now, either live or watching the replay, if you have questions, just send them to me. You can send them. Let me put in my email address. Hold on. I'm a slow typer. Valerie at marriagebeyondthebreach.com. If you have questions, I'll be more than happy to have a part 2, because you guys have provided some invaluable information, and I really, really appreciate that. Paula saying blessings to you all. This is so necessary. But I want you to talk about Carmelita. Yes. Hold on, let me see if I can put the banner up. And that's Carmelita's Couch. Talk about Carmelita's Couch.
A lot of people don't know this about me, but I grew up in foster care. From the age of 12 to 16, I was in foster care, and I was emancipated on my 16th birthday. And my experience in receiving mental health treatment while in foster care is what sort of drove me to have this lifetime goal of starting Carmelita's Couch. I mean, essentially, the mental therapy was non-existent. I mean, I went to a therapist weekly as part of, you know, sort of the requirement, but it wasn't helpful. You know, the people didn't look like me, couldn't relate to me, and nor my peers. And so I always said, when I grow up one day, I want to be able to be that person that can help, that can be relatable,
Yeah.
that can, validate feelings and emotions. So that's was sort of part one of me starting Carmelita's Couch, where I provide life coaching services to teenagers. I specialize in working with teenagers only because I feel like I do super well with them, and they're a hard population to reach. So even though I can work with any age group, I definitely specialize in working with teens and young adults because that's a population I'm very, very effective with. Part two on that is a lot of people also don't know that I have an older son who's 29 years old. And a little personal here, but I was a teen parent, and during his teenage years, it was a difficult time. And I was, obviously on my own and struggling through that period. And again, looking for, therapists or someone that could help him. It wasn't successful, and he went down the wrong road. And so I want to do my part to ensure that doesn't happen to any teen's life that I'm able to touch. I want to be, and that's why I include parents in what I do, because I felt as a parent unincluded when I was trying to get help for my son. It was sort of like, because of the breach of confidentiality, which absolutely there is confidentiality, and I don't breach confidentiality. Anytime I talk to a parent, it's more of a gathering information instead of giving information. I want you to tell me as much as you can about your child and your family and what's happening, so I can help your child. And if there's something the child would like for me to share or has given me permission to share, yes, I will share that. But it's important for me to hear from you too. And when I was going through that experience with my son, I didn't get that. So it was like he would meet with somebody, I didn't know what was happening. And then, there was one time where a therapist discharged him, and I had no idea for like 4 weeks. I thought he was still going to therapy
Wow.
because I set it up where he could go after school and go on his own. And I had no idea the services had stopped. I would never discharge a child without checking in with that parent, especially when there is an involved parent. As Terry said, sometimes that's just not the circumstance, but that wasn't my circumstance. So this is my way of giving back to the community for my own youth as well as my son's journey.
Wow.
And so I provide life coaching services to teenagers virtually. I also do groups virtually and in person. I'm trying to get back in person now with groups looking for a space to get that started back in person again, because it was really great to connect. So that's my journey.
Okay. And it's Carmelita's Couch. Carmelita is located in Jefferson,
Georgia. Yes.
Jefferson, Georgia, which is on the outskirts of Atlanta. However, she does provide services virtually. So it's Carmelita's Couch. I was trying to put in the chat, from the links that you sent me, but for some reason it's
I'm Carmelita's Couch everywhere. Instagram, Facebook.
Okay.
I'm Carmelita's Couch everywhere.
Yes, virtual services for teens, Carmelita's Couch, and it's virtual, so you don't have to live in Georgia.
Yeah.
You can live here.
I launched about a year ago. I asked people to, stick with the program for at least 12 weeks, but you don't have to, but that's my recommendation. And so far I've had 100% success rate with Carmelita's Couch.
Beautiful.
Fantastic.
Beautiful.
So Sister Terry, talk to me.
Oh boy. Well, I have a nonprofit organization called the Fab Coalition, Fashion Against Bullying. I've always had a love for fashion. However, this organization was born out of an unfortunate event where a student who was a friend of my daughter's in 8th grade committed suicide after being bullied. Wow. And when I got some information about the character and the personality of the student, I found out that he was very fashionable, was dealing with some issues of, gender identity and those types of things. And my daughter my daughter, my youngest one, who was in the 8th grade at the time, she's now a junior, going to be a senior in college. But she was the one that came up with the idea that she wanted to do something. And she got some of her friends at the high school. They wanted to formulate some type of organization or club or whatever. And we spent about a couple of hours in the living room just trying to come up with a name. And that's what we came up with, was Fashion Against Bullying, because they knew what they wanted to do. They wanted to have fashion shows. They wanted to, just socialize and get together. That was their way of expression. And our first fashion show was actually dedicated to that student, where we had clothing, with his initials made on it. And the kids, paid homage to his mother and his grandmother and his family on his behalf. And since then, that was in 2014. So we've been working in one particular school district for the past 8 years. And just recently in 2021, I presented the idea in Jersey City, and it was accepted. And now we do it in Jersey City as an after-school program, where we also teach basic life skills like sewing and hand sewing, machine sewing, just different things. But the club is set up so that sewing is, the students don't realize it, but it's basically a technique to get them to calm down, because it requires patience. And they don't even understand that they're doing it, but they're doing it. And when you have the environment so to where they can relax after school and just talk, a lot of things come out. So it's sort of like a unique type of group session that we run 3 times a week at one particular school in Jersey City. So it's just been a part of my passion to help students, and looking forward to grow. I've added on a consulting service as well, where we're actually going to schools to set up these clubs in various schools. So we're in two locations as of now, but we're looking to try to get it in other locations. And this is just recent, as of, like I said, last year. So, but it's a lot of fun. We take the kids on trips. They socialize. We have the kids are phenomenal. The students are brilliant, and they don't even realize their brilliance. You could have anywhere in this club someone from the Honor Society in the same club with somebody that's in special education. And they didn't talk to each other before, but because they have to do production work and they have to socialize with each other, now they're actually taking up for each other. So you have bullies in there with the ones that they used to bully. Now they're friends.
Wow.
So because they have to work together. So it's a really, I believe that God's hand is in it, because it's really such a unique program. I'm kind of winging it like as it goes and seeing if it works. Didn't know what the outcome was going to be, but you can go online, check out some of the past students and some of the work that we've done, that we're doing, the fabcoalition.com. We're also, I'm like Carmelita, we're the same name on Facebook, same name on Instagram.
Is it thefabcoalition.com or just fabcoalition.com?
Thefabcoalition.com. Yeah.
I'm going to be using that now as an intervention, Terry. The wearing something.
I'll come down to Georgia. Georgia, girl.
I love that idea of wearing a piece of clothing to, like, signify what you're feeling. So
okay, I hope I got it right.
Yes, that's it.
Thefabcoalition.com.
Yes, and we've been able to kind of even break the concept down to the younger students, and that's where the wearing the colors and the clothing and different things came in. But for the adults, it's actually become more of a mentoring program as well, because we've done shows for New York Fashion Week, and they've been the production company
Wow.
With that is showing them life skills, a whole lot of social emotional learning without them even knowing it. When they go to these types of events, they have to put the cell phones away unless they're directed to do so because of the licensing disclosure. So they can't take pictures of anything unless they're given permission to. So it's more of a positive thing. And we try to teach kids how to start their own businesses, their own brands, their own t-shirt businesses, vending, all kinds of creative stuff. I'm a creative, so I love using creativity in my counseling process and when I'm talking to teenagers. And I'm like Carmelita, I have a passion for just dealing with the high school and young adult age kids.
Yes.
And I like to be that liaison between especially the LGBT community. I've had to advocate a lot. In the schools that I've dealt with, I've had to advocate a lot on their behalf and fashion was actually a good tool to use for that community because they are allowed to express themselves during shows. We've had students that, parents didn't know till they came to a show and be like, okay, now let's have a conversation. Okay, because your child just walked out in a wig and high heels. So let's have a conversation.
Let's have a conversation. Absolutely.
What does it mean?
And I'm a huge ally at Carmelita's Couch as well for their LGBTQ community.
Yes, as am I. Yeah, actually, I had to ask my daughter because I said, Sadell, I know what the LGBTQ and the I stand for. What is the A? And that's when she said the A is for ally. I said, oh, okay. Well, that means I'm an ally. I'm an ally. Absolutely. My daughter just said that she likes that too. She said her karate school because my daughter teaches kickboxing, and she does it as well. They do some bully prevention seminars often and talk to their kids and teens about anxiety, depression, and bullying. She says she's going to mention both of your organizations and use that idea of a piece of clothing or color to signify feelings.
Right.
So that's good. That's
and
very
the only
good.
other caveat I wanted to say is that the other reason for Carmelita's Couch is kind of to take the stigma away from the therapy in the communities that I live in and work in. They're more suburban, rural communities. And I wanted to kind of be for others what I needed when I was going through that with my son, and an opportunity for people who maybe can afford to go ahead and pay for their child to have someone. Not that child doesn't necessarily have a serious mental health issue that they need a therapist. They can benefit from a life coach, somebody to talk to weekly, keep them accountable, on track, help them with things that they need help with. And, sort of informal, parents are just more comfortable with it. And I am so happy to see the people that are pulling up to take advantage of that for their kids. People who maybe normally would not do that because of the stigma or because they don't want a diagnosis necessarily, and it's not warranted or needed, and they are coming. And so when they show up, I'm like, you know what, I don't know what to do to help. I'm like, you just did it. You made that phone call. You just did it. Like, yes. Wow. That's all you already showed up. I got the rest. So I just wanted to add that I wanted to provide an opportunity that takes the stigma away, because in my community there are a lot of programs for kids who have insurance and who are disadvantaged, and there's a lot in my community for that, but then there's this pocket where there's really nothing there, and I wanted to fill that gap. You wanted to fill that gap. Yes. That's beautiful. Terry, I want you to talk about the scholarship dinner that you have coming up. And I want you to put in the chat, if you can, because I know that there's a link. I know you sent it to me, but for some reason I cannot find it. The link for those of us who would like to make a contribution towards the scholarship. So talk about the scholarship dinner that you have coming up.
Well, I'm excited about it, first of all, because this is our first one. And on June 5th, we will be giving out 2 $500 scholarships to 2 students from 2 totally different schools, communities. And these are not academic scholarships. These are actually creative scholarship and encouragement, empowerment scholarships. One of the students that we're giving the scholarship to is a special ed student, and she doesn't know, she's undecided, she doesn't know what she wants to do. And I said, well, you know what, over the summer we want you to have fun, so we're just giving her a little push, she doesn't know whether her mom is staying in the area, whether she's moving, but we just wanted her to be encouraged. And then we have another student who stuck with us through the virtual learning process, and she's going to community college to study photography and videography. And we want to give her the same thing as well. And it's not an academic scholarship. Not every student is going to college. Not every student is, a STEM student. So we don't want to leave out those kids who are creatives and want to do other things. June 5th, we'll be celebrating them and giving them out this scholarship. The event is totally cost-free. Nobody has to pay to come to the event.
Okay. I'm trying to share something. Can you guys see that?
Yeah.
I don't usually share. I was trying to figure it out. So this is it, right, Terry?
Yes.
Okay, great. Go ahead.
The dinner is going to be in Rahway, New Jersey at the Italian American Club. You can go right on the website, thefabcoalition.com, and hit donations. We have a donations button there, and it's directed, and the funds from our donations goes not only to scholarship, but so that we can do activities, continue to do the fun activities that we do within the community, such as the fashion shows, and we're getting ready to do a photo shoot at one of the schools, and we're highlighting one of the clubs that's at the school, because part of our belief too is that you're paying compliments to people and noticing them for their work as well. That makes you feel good. And so we're doing that. We're creating a magazine for the Fab Coalition and for the students that are participating. So at the end of the program, they will actually see themselves in this publication.
Wow.
And some of them are excited, they're like, wow, and we have a designer that's coming in. We've hired a photographer to come in. My daughter is a creative designer. She's coming in and doing some work with them. And a whole lot of fun that we look forward
I want to encourage everybody, go to thefabcoalition.com, and there's a contribute button. What
donations button. The donation
button. And please, I encourage you, and I encourage you to encourage others to contribute to this cause. It is absolutely something that's needed. This is their first annual scholarship dinner, but I am praying that God will bless them so tremendously that it will not be the last, that it will be more and more and more to come, because this is something that is so needed. And we talk a lot about what we need in our community. We talk a lot about what people need to do. And this is something that we can do ourselves to help support someone who was out there on the front lines providing services for our children. So I'm encouraging you all, thefabcoalition.com, go there, hit the donate button, and make a donation. And those of you who have a child who is a teenager, what's the age group, Carmelita, for your Carmelita's Couch?
I aim towards 11 and up.
11 and up. Carmelita's Couch. Virtually contact her. She's in Georgia, but you don't have to be in Georgia to utilize her services. So I just want to listen. This has been so good. This has been so good. Like I said, I usually try to keep it to an hour, but sometimes the conversations are so good, we can't stop. So I definitely want to try to arrange to have a part 2 if you guys are up for it. I'll see how we can coordinate our schedules and come back, because I did have some other questions I wasn't able to ask, and those who are listening now or in the future may have some questions as well. So guys, thank you so much. Share, like, subscribe, anything you need to do to get the word out, because there are resources out there. We just need to avail ourselves of them.
Yes, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. God bless you both.
It's good to
And
meet you,
those of you
Carmelita.
You too, Terry. We have to stay in touch.
Yes.
And those who are watching, next week, the Cookie Man and I will be on, and we are going to be honoring our mothers because the week after that is Mother's Day. Unfortunately, both of our mothers have passed away, but next Sunday we will be honoring our mothers, and I pray that you will join us and come on and honor your mother as well. Get a picture, send it to me. I'll share it on the screen, and you can have something to say and share some words about your mom as well. It's all about honoring our mothers on next Sunday. Okay, so God bless you both. I love you guys. I'll see you next
Thank
time.
you. You too.
Good night.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
bye-bye.
Good night.